You know what I think is so fascinating about this report? It doesn't just focus on the numbers of jobs. It really digs into these forces that are shaping the whole landscape of work. Like we're talking the impact of tech, the green transition, what's happening with the global economy, even changes in demographics.
And we're looking at data from the World Economic Forum itself, plus insights from their partners like Coursera, LinkedIn, ABP. Over 1,000 global employers contributed to this thing, so we're getting a really broad view here.
Yeah, it really paints this picture of major change. Millions of new jobs are emerging, but we're also seeing millions of jobs being displaced. So it's not just about growth, it's about a reshuffling of the entire job market.
The report actually predicts a net increase of 78 million jobs by 2030. But to get there, we're going to have to navigate some pretty big shifts. So let's start breaking down these trends that are shaping the future of work.
Absolutely. The report highlights 5 key trends: technological advancements, the green transition, economic uncertainty, geoeconomic fragmentation, and then those demographic shifts that we talked about. So let's start with tech, specifically the role of digital access.
Okay, so the report actually calls broadening digital access the #1 transformative trend, with 60% of the employers that they surveyed agreeing with that.
And it makes sense for it. It's not just about having internet access. Broadening digital access is like opening the door for all these other technologies to flourish. Look at the explosion of AI we've seen, particularly generative AI.
Yeah, Coursera's data shows that enrollments for AI training have just skyrocketed in the past few years. And it's not just individuals, it's companies too.
Right.
And India and the US are kind of leading the charge there.
It really illustrates how digital access is like a catalyst. Without that foundation, we wouldn't see this kind of widespread adoption of AI.
So digital access is definitely something to keep an eye on. But the report also brings up this ongoing cost of living crisis, even with hopes that inflation might ease up a bit. I mean, everyone is feeling that pressure, right?
Oh, absolutely. And businesses are feeling it too.
Yeah.
There's this pressure to do more with less. And that's leading a lot of companies towards automation and finding ways to just be more efficient.
And then there's climate change, which we often think of as just like an environmental issue. But this report makes it clear that it's a major economic force.
Oh, yeah. And what's interesting is that they predict that climate change adaptation will actually create more jobs than climate change mitigation. They're projecting 5 million versus 3 million jobs.
Wow, that is surprising. Why is adapting to climate change such a huge job creator?
Well, it's not just about reducing emissions anymore. It's about building resilience to the impacts that are already happening. And that requires a whole new approach, new infrastructure, and of course, new skills.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's this whole thing about geoeconomic fragmentation, basically the world becoming more divided, and how that's impacting how businesses operate.
Yeah, we're seeing this play out in a few ways. Employers in economies that are really reliant on trade with the US and China, they're especially worried about things like trade restrictions and subsidies.
So businesses are having to be strategic and figure out the best places to operate as this global landscape kind of keeps shifting.
Exactly. Fragmentation is leading to both offshoring and reshoring.
Yeah.
As companies try to position themselves strategically.
And then the final macro trend is these demographic shifts. We're seeing aging populations in some areas and then booming populations in others. It's like this global balancing act. And there are some big implications.
Yeah. Think about healthcare and education.
Yes.
As populations age, we're likely to need more healthcare professionals. And then on the other side, as the working age population grows in other parts of the world, we're going to see a surge in demand for teachers.
Makes you wonder which skills are going to be most in demand as this workforce evolves. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's dive into what the report says about the specific jobs of tomorrow.
Okay, let's get into the specifics. I think there are some surprises in store. Remember that net increase of 78 million jobs we were talking about? Well, it's not as simple as just adding jobs across the board. The report actually predicts that 92 million jobs will be displaced by 2030. So those 78 million new jobs. That comes after this major reshuffling of the job market.
Oh, wow. So it's like a giant game of job Tetris. Things shifting around, disappearing, and reappearing in new forms.
Exactly. And if we look at the roles that are projected to grow the fastest, tech is front and center. The top 3 fastest growing roles by percentage are all tech-focused. Big data specialists, fintech engineers, and AI and machine learning specialists.
Not really a surprise, is it? AI has been making headlines for years now, so it makes sense that those skills are in such high demand.
Absolutely. But it's not just AI. Green jobs are also seeing really significant growth. Renewable energy engineers and autonomous vehicle specialists. Those are two examples from the report's list of the top 15 fastest growing jobs.
Okay, so tech and sustainability seem like pretty solid bets if you're looking for like a future-proof career. What about the jobs that are on the decline?
A lot of the fastest declining roles
Hmm.
are clerical and administrative positions. So think cashiers, ticket clerks, administrative assistants, even accountants and auditors. The report points to automation and digitalization as the main drivers behind this trend.
So those routine, repetitive tasks are being taken over by tech, which frees up humans to focus on more complex and creative work.
Exactly. But there's one detail that I found particularly interesting: the rise of security management specialists. This role is projected to grow significantly, which is kind of a sign of the times we live in.
Yeah, I can see that. We're all so much more reliant on technology now. Cybersecurity is more important than ever.
Right. But it's also driven by that geoeconomic uncertainty we were talking about. As the world feels less stable, businesses are investing more in security.
It's like we're living in a sci-fi movie. But instead of laser guns, it's data breaches that we have to watch out for.
That's a pretty fitting analogy. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. The report also projects substantial growth in what they call the care economy,
Yeah.
which includes jobs like nursing, social work, personal care.
Okay, good. Makes sense though, right? As populations age and people are living longer, we're going to need more people to care for those who need it.
Yeah, and it's driven by both demographic shifts and this growing societal recognition of how important care work is. The report also predicts a significant increase in education roles, spurred by both expanding working age populations and broader digital access.
So it's not just about the tech jobs, it's also those human-centered jobs. There's a need for both as we move into the future.
Exactly. Now, if you're thinking, okay, this is all great, but how do I actually get ready for this future of work? That's where this discussion about skills comes in. And I think you'll find this part quite relevant.
All right, let's hear it. What skills do we need to thrive in this constantly evolving world?
Well, the report throws out this pretty significant statistic. 39% of workers will need to change their skill set by 2030.
39%? That's a huge number. Sounds like lifelong learning isn't just a nice idea anymore, it's essential.
You got it. The days of learning one set of skills and cruising through your career, those are over. We need to be continually upskilling and reskilling to stay relevant.
So which skills should we be focusing on?
Well, unsurprisingly, the top skills in demand are all related to technology, AI and big data, networks and cybersecurity, and general technological literacy. Those are all right at the top of the list.
Okay, so if I haven't already, I need to get on board with those tech skills, ASCP. But what about the human side of things? Do those skills even matter anymore?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. The report actually emphasizes that. Even in a world of automation and AI, human skills are becoming more important, not less.
So robots aren't taking over completely just yet.
Not quite. As AI handles more routine tasks, the skills that set us apart as humans, those become even more valuable. We're talking about things like creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, curiosity, and figuring out how to leverage technology to your advantage. Now, there's another point from the skills section that I found fascinating: the declining importance of manual dexterity.
Really? I would have thought that would be something that robots would have trouble with.
It actually turns out robots are pretty good at tasks that require manual dexterity. What's interesting is that in roles where manual dexterity still needed, employers are demanding like a higher level of expertise.
So it's not enough to just be good with your hands, you have to be like a master craftsman.
Precisely. And I think this speaks to this larger trend. As technology keeps advancing, that bar for human skills is getting raised. We need to be exceptional to stand out.
This makes me think about generative AI and what it can and can't do. The report had some interesting things to say about that, specifically how even though generative AI can automate certain tasks, it's still limited in other areas.
That's right. Research by Indeed, one of the WEF's collaborators, shows that generative AI still struggles with tasks that require physicality, human judgment, and complex problem solving.
So there's still a human advantage in the workplace.
Absolutely. And I think that's reassuring for anyone who's worried about being replaced by a robot.
So we've talked about these big trends that are shaping the future of work, the specific jobs that are going to be hot, and the skills we need to thrive. But what about the companies themselves? How are they adapting to all this change?
That's a great question, and I think you'll be encouraged by what the report has to say. Their top priority right now is upskilling and reskilling their existing employees. In fact, 77% of employers plan to invest in this, which is a big jump from previous years.
So it sounds like they're realizing it's better to invest in their current workforce. than to just be constantly searching for new talent.
Exactly. And this is closely tied to another key trend in the report: talent retention. Companies are recognizing that it's not just about attracting talent, it's about holding on to the talent they already have.
Which means offering competitive salaries, of course, but it also means things like supporting employee well-being and providing opportunities for growth and development, right?
That's right. And here's an interesting trend. The share of revenue allocated to wages is actually expected to increase in the coming years, not decrease. So companies are putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to valuing employees.
Okay, that's good news for workers. Sounds like companies are finally understanding that investing in people is good for business.
Precisely. And it's not just about throwing money at the problem. The report also highlights the rise of something called skills-based hiring.
So instead of just looking at resumes and degrees, companies are using things like skills assessments and psychometric tests to find the right people for the job.
Exactly. Work experience is still important, of course, but employers are recognizing that skills can be acquired in many different ways, not just through traditional education.
So what does all of this mean for you, our listener? The future of work is definitely full of change, but it also seems like there are a lot of opportunities out there.
Absolutely. If we kind of connect this back to the bigger picture, the jobs of the future are going to require a blend of technical expertise, that ability to adapt and be flexible, and a deep understanding of these complex challenges that our world is facing.
So embrace continuous learning, hone those human skills, and don't be afraid to explore new paths.
I couldn't have said it better myself. If you're looking to stay ahead of the curve, continuous learning is key. Whether it's taking online courses, attending workshops, or just reading industry publications, there are tons of resources out there to help you stay relevant and build those in-demand skills.
And don't forget the power of networking, connecting with people in your field, attending industry events. That can open up all sorts of opportunities. All right, that's all the time we have for today. And let us know what were your biggest takeaways, what questions do you still have, and what steps are you taking to prepare for the future of work? Thanks for listening.